another life, I would be your girl. We keep all our promises, be us against the world. In another life, I would make you stay, so I don't have to say you were the one that got away. Oh, dang. Okay, the chat box is working. Wonderful. Hello. 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 I don't know why you're so surprised by me singing. That's how I start, like, almost every live stream. I'm a professional at what I do. Hello. 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 Okay, great. You're watching this during class. Why would you do that? You was just listening to Rihanna. Aw, man, that's a mean joke. That's mean. That's friggin' mean. Man door, hand hook, car door. I'm okay. I've got this book here that I'm gonna read. I realized, like, oh, there's not much of a visual, so I just found a YouTube video of a star field, and we're just gonna watch that. Oh, hold on, it's not actually working. It got cut off. Hold on, I'll fix it. Did that work? Yeah, there we go. I pushed it off to the side too far. The video got cut off, but now it's working. You can watch the whole star field rather than just a third of it. I know it's the spooky season, so I've got a book here. There's a Killer on Friday the 13th. Which one? Like the first one? Because that's like, I don't know, it's Miss Voorhees or something. But that's a spoiler. Those are scary stories to tell in the dark. No, because those are actually of, like, good quality. This is questionable quality. So, I have Campfire Ghost Stories, Volume 2. You can look it up if you want. It's by A.S. Mott, who is a very hard person to find photos of. This is facts. But, this... I took this from, like, an ex's house. Like, he said I could have it because he wasn't reading it, but, you know, it's not very well written. But here, I'll do some real ASMR. Page flipping. Yeah, page flipping. Page flipping. Flip the pages. The pages are being flipped. Yeah. There's an introduction here that I'm not going to read. Like, when I was younger, I knew I wanted to be a writer, but it wasn't my only creative passion. Well, apparently it was his passion, because I'm pretty sure A.S. Mott has written, like, an absolute fuck ton of these books. Yeah, he wrote urban legends, things like that. These are, like, the Ghost House book series. There are so many of these. Like, this book is from, like, 2004, but there are, like, tons of these books, like, urban legends of every state and province, and Victorian ghost stories, haunted battlefields, haunted cemeteries, like, just making a living off of selling just very questionable spooky stories. It's crazy. Story where the guy brings the ghost girl home and then her family says she was dead for 20 years. That's probably in Urban Legends. I have that book, but it's, like, somewhere else. You're in Dead by Daylight. Oh, yeah, that's right. The ghost face is in Dead by Daylight. I haven't watched the movie Scream, though. I haven't. I know, I think Shaggy from the Scooby-Doo movie is in that movie, I think. I don't remember his name. You're here to haunt me. Oh, God. Have to send $1 for literally no reason. You could do it. I'm not going to stop you. Nobody can stop you from doing anything. Okay. This one is one that I actually wanted to start with because it's like the horrors of capitalism or something. I don't know. Anyway, always read your contracts, I guess. Okay, so this story is called The Contract. Man, get the fuck out of here. Ruining everybody's good time. Anyway. Your house was built during the First World War and we renovated it today. Wow. Matthew Lillard, that's his name, yeah. We all know what's up. Oh shoot, really? I did not get that notification. The chat wasn't updating on my end. Dang it. Thank you, Biohazard Shade, for the $1. Freaking heck, I gotta turn the sound on this thing. Sorry, YouTube Studio is not very good. But thank you for the $1. I'm sus, dang. Do I have a Twitch? Well, I used to have a Twitch, but I don't go there anymore. Like, everybody says, like, you get better revenue if you go on Twitch, but, like, the culture there is a lot different, and I'm really not a huge fan of it. I only want to watch people there. I don't want to stream there. Why does everybody always ask if I'm sick? I'm sick of being asked if I'm sick. That's... I heard this thing called Twitch Prime. Yeah, I've heard of it. Like, listen, Twitch is more of a visual medium. A person with just a voice like me, I don't think I could make it on there. I'm just not that cool. But I was watching this art stream there last night by Frostios. They were doing their AI-tober catch-up. So, you know, that was fun. Anyway, The Contract, the horrors of capitalism. This is something that we all have to worry about someday, eventually. The Contract. Jeff sat nervously in the waiting room to his boss's office. Even though the room was kept warm, his anxiety made him shiver. Normally such a situation would have him sweating like a chicken on a rotisserie, but for some reason his skin felt only the slightest bit damp. It felt as if he had been sitting there forever. He had trouble even remembering what he had been doing before he had been summoned. Don't worry, the twist isn't that he's a demon. You missed the Jeff the Killer live stream. Oh, it was terrible. Well, I'm sorry, Biohazard Shade. You can't pay me to be cool. I've watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I haven't watched part 5 yet. Or the dub was terrible, as usual. Do you know what this is about? He asked Lola, Mr. Friedmont's secretary, but just like the previous 4 times he asked her this question, she appeared not to hear him. Her telephone rang, and she picked it up. "Yes, sir," Jeff heard her say into the receiver. She then turned toward him and spoke to him for the first time since he had sat down. "You can go in now," she told him, her words tinged with an inexplicably icy disdain that made him worry even more about what he must have done wrong. Yeah, sorry, Mitch. That's a good one. Never gonna get over sorry, Mitch. That's one of our premium emotes. That's for the real fakers. They get to use the sorry emoji. I haven't seen Tokyo Ghoul. Mr. Friedman was on the phone with Jeff. Mr. Friedman was on the phone when Jeff walked into his office. "Don't give me some sob story about your mother's medical bills," the large man shouted at the other person on the line. "If you don't pay me back what you owe me by the end of the week, then I'm taking your car, your house, and that pathetic excuse of a restaurant you have the nerve to call a business." With that, he slammed down his phone. "Damn relatives," he swore under his breath before he noticed the cowering employee standing in front of him. Yeah. You guys got the sorry emoji. "Sit down, Dixon," he ordered Jeff, using his last name. "I was just finishing up some business with my sister." Holy shit. Jeff sat down in the small, uncomfortable chair in front of Mr. Fremont's desk. It was so low to the ground that he had to look up to see his boss's face. There, among a yellowing mustache, a newly sprouted pimple, and a large, unambiguous nose, he found the one thing no one ever wanted to see on George Freeman's fleshy visage. A big, toothy grin. Oh, okay, well, this is confusing. Our main character's name is Jeff, but his boss's name is George. That's weird. Never thought of JoJo ASMR. I don't think I could pull it off. I mean, it's kind of like the opposite of ASMR. Everyone knew that, like a shark, Mr. Fremont smiled only when he smelled blood in the water and was about to go in for the kill. "Do you know why I called you in here?" he asked Jeff, his disturbingly cheerful smile still apparent on his face. "No, sir," Jeff admitted. Hearing this, Mr. Fremont interlaced his fingers and sat back in his seat, striking the pose of an armchair philosopher. Getting scared because of the taxes. Oh man, you getting spooked? Too late, bro. Can I read Shrek fanfic? Not yet. That's a different stream. "I am certain that you are aware that I am a very rich man," he said. "Yes, sir," Jeff nodded. "Do you know how I was able to earn all my wealth?" "No, sir." Jeff shook his head. "I was able to do it because I believe in following the rules. When I sign a contract with someone, I make sure to follow every clause that contract contains, and I make sure that the other person does the same." This is kind of hard to read with the pop filter in the way. Okay. With that, Mr. Fremont unclasped his hands and leaned forward in his chair, readying himself for the kill. "Have you ever read the contract you signed when you became an employee at this company?" he asked Jeff, even though he knew the answer. "No, sir," Jeff admitted. "The truth was that the day he was hired, the director of personnel had him sign so many documents he wasn't even sure which contract Mr. Fremont was referring to." "Then I suppose you think that absolves you, don't you?" asked Mr. Fremont. Jeff gulped. "Absolves me of what, sir?" "Of breaking the rules and trying to get out of our agreement," Mr. Fremont roared at him, his face turning into a burning, hot scarlet mask of anger. "I don't know what you're talking about," Jeff said, trying to defend himself. "No popcorn? Alright, fine, you can have your popcorn. It's scary. Halloween candy's more appropriate for this. Anyway, the horrors of capitalism continued. "Oh, you don't, do you? You don't know what I'm talking about?" Mr. Fremont reached into his desk and pulled out a file folder. "This is what I'm talking about," he shouted as he threw the folder at Jeff. Papers and photographs spilled out of the folder and fell to the floor as Jeff fumbled to catch it. "Take just one look and you'll understand why you're in breach of contract." Jeff picked up the papers and photographs that were on the ground and tried to tidy them up before he looked at them. Mr. Fremont grew impatient at this and roared at him to get on with it. Jeff looked down at the first page in front of him. It looked like a police report. What it said left him confused. A final paragraph at the bottom of the page summed up the report's findings. Mr. Dixon's body was found hanging from an electrical cord in his basement. All the available evidence, including the note he left behind, lead us to conclude that his death was a suicide. What does this have to do with me? Jeff asked uneasily. Look at one of the damn photos, you moron, his boss swore at him. Jeff found one of the photographs and gasped aloud when he saw it. There in the picture, clear as day, was his body hanging from an electrical cord from a beam in his small basement. Now more confused than ever, he shuffled through the papers until he found a photocopy of a handwritten note. Looking at it, he could see the original had been written on the personalized stationery his sister had given him last Christmas. The note read, I can't take this pressure anymore. I'm so lonely and this job is killing me, so I've decided this is my only way out. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Jeff. Did you really think you could get out of your contract so easily? Sneered Mr. Fremont. I don't understand, Jeff answered, fear and panic evident in his words. Your contract specifically states that the only way you are legally able to leave this company is by serving out the agreed-upon term of 10 years, or by being fired. Mr. Fremont reached back into his desk and pulled out another folder. This one contained the contract that Jeff had signed when he started at the company. Nowhere in this document, he explained to Jeff, does it say that death is a legitimate way to terminate your contract. Nowhere. You have another 8 years to work at this company, regardless of whether or not you're dead. What are you talking about? Jeff stood up and shouted at his boss. Just look at yourself, you fool. Mr. Fremont pulled a small mirror out of his desk that I guess he keeps just for this purpose alone, and handed it to the quivering mass of nerves in front of him. I can't do a Tokyo Ghoul roleplay. I've never seen that show. Jeff grabbed the mirror, looked into it, and nearly fainted. No doubt about it. He was looking at a dead man. Ha, 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 he stammered as he stared at his reflection. How? It's all in your contract, that's how. It says clearly that if you die before the contract has been fulfilled, then I have every right to use the powers of darkness and evil. Bro. You want to know how darkness and evil are spelled? Darkness is spelled D-A-R-K-N-Y-S-S, and evil is spelled E-V-Y-L. I have every right to use the powers of darkness and evil, my lawyers, to resurrect you and keep you alive as an animated corpse until the end of the agreed-upon term. Normally, this would mean you'd have to work another 8 years, but thanks to the suicide penalty clause, I have the right to add another 100 years to time left in the contract. "100 years? But you won't even be alive by then." "You're assuming I'm alive right now," answered Mr. Fremont. "You're not the only one who has signed a contract, you know. I have 300 years to go before I'm eligible to pass on." "But," Jeff attempted to speak before Mr. Fremont interrupted him. "How do I manage to look so good for someone so dead? You'd be amazed what someone trained in the arts of plastic surgery, taxidermy, and undertaking can do for the deceased. I look better now than I did when I was alive, which can't be said for some of the other dead folks working here. You can't tell me you didn't notice them." The horrors of capitalism. Jeff had seen some people in the building who hadn't looked particularly healthy, but he had never once thought that they were the walking dead. But, he tried to speak again, but he was unable to think of anything to say. "Don't act all surprised," Mr. Fremont scolded him. "You knew what you were getting into. I mean, you signed the contract with your own blood, after all." "No, I didn't," Jeff protested. He would have remembered doing something as suspicious as that. "Sure you did. Remember how we made you take that insurance physical? Well, during that, we took some of your blood and placed it inside the ink cartridge that was in the pen you used to sign everything with." Okay, shut up. This is ridiculous. "It's standard procedure at this company. It's not my fault if you people don't look out for yourselves." Jeff slumped down dejectedly in the chair in front of Mr. Fremont's desk. "You said it was possible for me to get fired?" he asked hopefully. "Yes, but in this case it means we'd throw you into the boiler room furnace." Mr. Fremont stood up and walked over to Jeff. He grabbed his arm and lifted the stunned zombie out of his chair and led him to his office door. This poor guy. "I suggest you just do your best to do a good job, and the 108 years will fly by like nothing. Now get back to work, and tell Henson that if his work rate doesn't improve soon, then he's looking at a fast trip to the boiler room." With that, he pushed Jeff out of his office and slammed his door shut. Jeff stood for a while as he tried to figure out what had just happened. Finally, Lola noticed his confusion and made the uncharacteristic attempt to cheer him up. "Don't worry about it," she said to him. "Being dead isn't as bad as people make it out to be. I've been dead for 5 years now, and I've never felt better. You will have to get used to the constant craving for live human brains, but they have a patch for that now, and in a pinch, you can always buy fresh cow brains at the butcher shop around the corner." Okay. "Thanks," Jeff mumbled as he started to shuffle out of the waiting room and back to his cubicle. As he slowly stumbled on his dead legs past his coworkers, he noticed that he honestly couldn't tell the difference between the ones who were dead and who were still alive. This didn't make him feel any better. That's the end of the story. This is what I mean when I say questionable quality. They say these are campfire ghost stories. Could you imagine telling this around a fucking campfire? Everyone would just be like, "Boo, this is so lame. Tell the haunted clown statue story again." Okay. I'm trying to find it. I don't... Okay, that one's just about, bad Wiccan knowledge. I don't want to read that. There's artwork in this book. It's not, great. It's very 2000s. Read the Tails doll curse. Is that even a story? Is that even a thing that exists? This book is from 2004, I think. Let's see. Yeah, 2004. How old am I? Old enough to know better. That's all you get now to me. Okay. There were 2 reasons no one sympathized. This is a new story. I'm starting a new story. Tails doll curse is a real thing. Okay, is the story an actual story, or are you trying to say it's a real thing that exists? I don't think that's true. Under his bed. This is the story. There were 2 reasons no one sympathized with Josh when he insisted that a monster lived underneath his bed. The first was the obvious fact that monsters weren't real. The second was that, at the age of 34, Josh was far too old to harbor such a juvenile, paranoid fantasy. Josh understood this. He wasn't a crazy person, so he was fully aware of how crazy he sounded when he explained his odd belief. But as far as he was concerned, that didn't stop it from being true. Though he had never actually seen the monster, the clues pointing toward its existence were far too obvious to be ignored. First, there were strange rumbling noises that he heard at night, which sounded like an inhuman combination of heavy breathing and loud snoring. Then there was the fact that whenever he went to sleep with a half-eaten snack left on his bedside table, it would inevitably be gone the next morning. What? Who the fuck just leaves half-eaten snacks on their bedside table and falls asleep? That's how you get ants, bro. What the fuck is this? Josh is a messy fuck. Anyway, there was also the strange smell that lingered in the room, no matter how many bottles of vanilla-scented deodorizing spray he emptied into it. And finally, there were large footprints that could occasionally be found on the room's plush white carpeting. As far as he was concerned, the combination of all this evidence served as irrefutable proof of his, admittedly bizarre, theory. His friends, coworkers, and family, though, were not as easily convinced as he was. They had no problems whatsoever refuting the irrefutable, and shot down the veracity of his clues one by one. First, they pointed out, the inhuman noises he described most likely came from his own body, as anybody who'd ever lived or camped with Josh knew that the snores he created could easily be confused with the groans of a large animal. Okay, so Josh is apparently my dad. The strange smell is the rotten food. You might be right. You might just be right. Then they reminded him that he was also prone to sleepwalking, which would explain the missing food and strange footprints. Oh, okay, so Josh is just stupid. Like, really? Come on, you really think a sleepwalker would start thinking that there's a monster under his bed? He's just like, oh, this is me when I'm sleepwalking, obviously. I can't pray for you, but I will wish you good luck. Anyway. When he asked them to account for the room's strong odor, they would usually become embarrassed before politely suggesting to him that it wouldn't hurt if he took a shower more often. I think he's the monster under the bed. Like, what the fuck? Are they telling him that he friggin' stinks? They would also point out the fact that whenever anyone looked under his bed, the only thing to be found was a stray sock or a collection of dust balls. Well, pick up the sock then. It doesn't need to be there. Annoyed by their skepticism, Josh would impatiently inform them that the creature appeared only at night when he was alone in the room, which he admitted sounded a bit convenient, but was true nonetheless. But despite this logic, they refused to believe him. Finally, their skepticism grew so irritating, he decided he had to do something about it. I mean, I know it's 2004, but they had cameras back then. I know they did. I was alive. I mean, just barely. Oh no. I'm streaming at the lower than recommended bitrate? What the heck happened? How could this be? I don't even know what these words mean. How do I fix that? That's annoying. Oh well. Sure, it'll sort itself out eventually. How's the, Okay, the starfield's still working. I don't know what happened. I do need more bits. I don't know what these words mean. But it says I have a good connection, so I don't know, whatever. It's ridiculous. I pay so much for my internet, I really hope this works. Yeah, it's just messing with my bit rates. I don't know. You guys tell me if the stream starts dying on me. You can do that. Just leave a message in chat. Tell me if things look fuzzy. Anyway. Only problem I have with this is that the chat stopped updating on... So annoying. I really don't like YouTube Studio. It does this all the time. I open up a widget and then all of a sudden the chat just disappears. we go, the connection's back to normal. League of Legends ASMR. I don't even know what that is. Anyway, we continue on with this. He's getting irritated. He's gonna do something about it. It finally came to him while he was doing some research on the internet. Oh man, 2004 internet. Oh man, such good times. I miss Neopets. I know it's still around, but I miss Neopets. It occurred to him that all he had to do to prove he was right was to connect a webcam to his computer. Yeah. Oh. How fortuitous. He's going to live stream the affair. It occurred to him that all he had to do to prove he was right was to connect a webcam to his computer, place it in his bedroom, and set up a website where people could watch what happened in his room during the night. Possessed with the kind of energy that can come only from having a monumentally brilliant idea, Josh raced out of his house and purchased all the necessary equipment. After a long week spent setting everything up, Josh was ready to go live, coast to coast. He sent email messages to everyone he knew, informing them of his project and telling them where to go online to watch him. Many of them emailed him back, and their response was unanimous. They thought he had lost his mind. Josh ignored them. He went into his room and turned on his camera. Okay, but like, dude, think about it. This is in 2004. I was on the internet in 2004. YouTube didn't exist yet, and the video quality for webcams was pretty bad, and I'm assuming that he's going to be doing this in the dark, so... yeah, nobody's gonna see that monster. Oh my god, Gameling, seriously. OG sleep streamer, yes, of course. Alright. There we go. Alright, where was I? Out of curiosity, he ran over to his computer and went to his website and was thrilled to see his bedroom broadcast to the world. He sat there for over an hour and watched as the camera documented the mind-numbing boredom of an empty room, hoping that at some point the monster would decide to stir. It didn't, and Josh's eyes grew heavy with sleep. With a long, drawn-out, arm-stretching yawn, he decided it was time to go to bed. He went to his room and started to undress. Oh no, they don't allow that on Twitch. Or no, it's back in the day, Justin TV, I guess? Okay, I'm skipping this whole friggin' paragraph. He changed in the bathroom and waved goodnight to the camera and went to bed, okay? I don't need all this extraneous detail. Whatever. No one bothered to log in and watch him sleep that night, and even if they had, all they would have seen was Josh tossing and turning in his bed before he got up and sleepwalked around the room for 10 minutes. Not once would they have caught even the slightest glimpse of an inhuman monster. Josh didn't see the monster either when he reviewed the 8 hours of webcam footage he'd recorded. Disappointed, but still convinced he was on the right track, Josh theorized two possibilities for the monster's on-camera absence. Either the creature was camera shy, or it was invisible. I mean, that's a good one. I wouldn't expect an invisible monster under my bed. His bedroom is amazing at high resolution 240p. In the dark. It specifically says he turned off the light, so he's filming... Listen, I'm not like a professional film student or anything, or like a filmographer or some shit, but if I recall correctly from my various attempts at filming various things, you turn off the light in a room, the camera's not gonna see anything. Like, he doesn't have a nightlight or anything. I don't even know how it caught him sleepwalking. It should be completely dark. He especially liked the latter theory, because it also explained why he had never seen the creature himself. He posted these 2 possible explanations on his website and received 11 email messages from friends and family urging him to seek professional psychiatric help. Oh man, what a mood. Remember when you could post crazy shit online and people would, like, actively urge you to get help? These days, you just say, like, whatever crazy shit you want, and nowadays you'll just get people commenting like, yeah, I believe in that too. Internet's a friggin' nightmare these days. Fuck QAnon. Josh became more and more convinced about these 2 theories as the months passed, and his camera failed to catch a glimpse of the monster for even a second, but as strong as his convictions were, he did have moments of doubt. Maybe his friends and family were right. He sometimes caught himself wondering, maybe there really wasn't a monster under his bed. It was just after one of these moments that he had another brilliant idea. He ran out and bought a new camera that was capable of recording images in heat vision. Even if the monster was invisible, it still had to produce heat, and this new camera would be able to see it. Okay, I'm gonna look that up. How much do you think a heat vision camera costs? Honestly. Because this dude, he's just going out and he's like, I know, I'll buy a heat vision camera. That's gotta cost at least $1,000. Okay. So there is a device from 2014 that costs $200, but it does say in the article that up until now, such technology has cost $1,000 or more. So since it's 2004, probably $1,000. So homie is, like, obsessed with the monster under his bed, but apparently he works a job and, like, is rich enough that he can just drop $1,000 on a thermal camera. Way to go, Josh. Anyway. Unfortunately, the new camera also failed to capture anything out of the ordinary, so that's $1,000 down the drain. Finally, after 6 months, Josh was forced to conclude that everyone else was right, and he was wrong. There was no monster under his bed. Feeling stupid and silly, he removed the camera from his room and dismantled his website. Although most people would be pleased to know that their room wasn't cursed with the presence of an evil supernatural creature, Josh became profoundly depressed. It wasn't much fun to be proved a fool. I pity the fool. Dang it. Chat froze again. I'm just gonna leave it and pop out. That might fix it. Maybe Josh would rob banks in his sleep and just had tons of money lying around. Yeah, he's the kind of guy that's, like, dense enough that he'd just be like, ah, yeah, man, where'd all this cool money come from? Sweet. The monster is Josh himself. The monster was inside the house. He lived with this depression for 2 months. Then one night, as he lay in his bed, he smelled something funny in the air. It was the odor of smoke and burning plastic. In the dark, he turned his head and saw that somehow the cord connected to his table lamp had started to smolder and burn. By the time he had jumped out of bed, the cord had begun to burn in earnest, and flames attacked his wooden nightstand. Out of instinct, he ran out of the room and found the small fire extinguisher he kept under the sink in the kitchen. Okay, Jeff lives in an apartment, because people that live in houses don't have those. But you're required to have them in apartments. That's what I'm saying. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. With it, he ran back into his room and stood in front of the nightstand and sprayed a thick layer of foam onto the fire, extinguishing it. He looked under his bed, and though he couldn't see any flames, he decided to give it a blast from the extinguisher just in case. As he sprayed the foam, he was shocked to hear a loud, inhuman scream. In front of his amazed eyes, the entire bed upended itself as if a very strong animal had thrown it up in the air. It was then that he saw the foam he had sprayed rise from the floor. As it did, he could see it conform to the invisible body that it covered. It was at that moment that Josh began to shake, not because he was terrified of the invisible foam-covered creature in front of him, but because he was so thrilled to realize that he had been right all along. No one had believed him, but every single one of his theories had been correct. Just as he wondered why the special camera he'd bought hadn't picked up this creature's heat signature, he discovered the reason when a huge foam-covered appendage reached out and gripped him by the throat. It was the same temperature as the room. Yeah, man, I still can't get over that. He wasted $1,000 on that. How could a huge creature fit under his bed? I don't know, it's a monster or something. Well, he's gonna die. While most people in the situation would spend their last seconds screaming in horror as the entirety of their lives flashed in front of their eyes, the only thought in Josh's head as the monster sliced into him with long, sharp, invisible claws was that he regretted taking down the webcam and dismantling the website. If he had kept them for just a few months longer, then everyone would have known that he had been right all along. And that's the end of the fucking story. That was terrible. That was a bad story. There was no point to it at all. That sucked. I know it's been 16 years, but goddamn, A.S. Mott, what are you doing? I guess this just proves that, like, back in the day, as long as it would sell, you could publish fucking anything. Just, like, a collection of short stories. And people were like, yeah, I'll buy this. It didn't go anywhere. That was a terrible fucking story. I'm just gonna flip through this. Okay, that's bad. I can just flip through these stories and, like, read the last sentence, and I can just, like, know that, like, no, this was terrible. Oh, that's a bad one. Oh my god. Okay, this is a really long one, but it's, like, hilariously horrible. I think I feel it. I can't do Toku ASMR because I don't know what that is, bro. I don't, like, what are you talking about? Okay, this one's called A Father's Love. And we have a reading of the 2017 literature classic Girlfriend. What? That's a generic-ass name. I'd never even be able to find that. Do your best Bane voice. Okay. You just gotta, like, cover your mouth a little bit. I was born in the dark. I don't know, that sucked. Whatever. That's the best I can do. When Luke's parents informed him that he would be staying at his Uncle Frank's for a month while they went on a trip to Europe, he was more than a little unhappy about it. Despite his protest that he was, at 14, old enough to stay at home by himself, they could not be persuaded to change their minds. Luke liked his Uncle Frank, who was a very funny and generous guy, but something else made him unhappy about staying at the man's house. The problem was that his uncle had a peculiar hobby that had creeped Luke out ever since he was a toddler. A huge film buff, Frank collected movie posters. Specifically, he collected horror movie posters, each more disgusting and disturbing than the last. You say more shoes lines? I don't even know what that is. do you mean, do I live under a rock? Are you still fucking talking about Tokyo Ghoul? I'm not watching that show. A brief glance at any of the house's many walls was enough to give Luke nightmares for weeks, and the worst thing was that the most frightening of all posters was located in the house's only spare bedroom, right where Luke was sleeping. Right where Luke would be sleeping, yeah. Can I cover the clown statue? It's scaring the kids. Get our clown statue out of there. We don't have kids. Or she was that shopkeeper from the CDI Legend of Zelda game. Okay, well, I could do... That sounds fun. That sounds fine enough, right? I could do that. I could do that. I could just do some silly shit. Just dub over the Legend of Zelda CDI cutscenes. I could do that. Like, I'm probably a better voice actor than anybody that was in that game, and I don't say that lightly. Anyway, it was for a movie that Luke had never heard of, called Sammy, and even though he had no idea what it was about, he had decided that, based solely on the poster, it had to be the scariest film ever made. As far as he could tell, the movie must have been about a strange mutant child named Sammy, as the poster depicted a small childlike figure with the most horribly deformed face Luke had ever seen. The snarling creature had 4 sunken black eyeballs, 2 in the usual spots, and 2 higher up on its forehead. Instead of a nose, there was just an empty hole in the middle of its face, and its mouth, which was full of razor-sharp teeth, was found misplaced on its left cheek. So it's like that one, like, sideways anime view meme. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Like, the one that shows, like, an anime character from a side view with, like, their mouth on the side, and then it shows them from a front view with, like, their mouth still on the side. You know what I'm talking about, right? That's all I can imagine here. Anyway, its skin was pale white and covered with big red sores and blisters, some of which oozed clear, viscous fluids. Patches of dark hair covered the top of its head, along with random bald spots that exposed a dry and damaged scalp. Luke coming out here critiquing people's hair care. Get Sammy some head and shoulders, bruh. Whenever he felt brave enough to look at it, Luke had trouble deciding if the image was the result of a photograph of the world's greatest makeup job, or the most convincingly photorealistic drawing he had ever seen. Are you saying it was hyper-realistic? Sammy is fine. Shut up. I mean, honestly, if Sammy was a real movie monster, he'd have fangirls. He would. Luke is 14, he doesn't know anything about the world. New video Morse code ASMR. Alright. Okay. The creature from Sammy quickly found its way into Luke's nightmare. Even worse, the poster was almost always the first thing he saw when he woke up from one of these horrible dreams. He wanted to ask his uncle to take it down, but he didn't. After having argued so long and hard with his parents that he was mature enough to take care of himself for the month, he knew that admitting a movie poster frightened him that badly would only prove to them that they had been right to make him stay with Frank. So as the days passed, he did his best to ignore the poster and rid his mind of the horrific image it had burned into his dreams. Okay. So this is like with Critical, where that poster kept him from jerking off, except it's just like it's giving him nightmares. That's a reference not everybody's gonna get. That's kind of gross. Sammy in the creepypasta mansion when he sees Slender. Okay. He spent most days watching television, playing with his uncle's dog Casey, or reading one of the hundreds of science fiction books his uncle owned. Oh, man. This was before YouTube. What was on TV in 2004 that a 14-year-old would be watching? I wasn't that age back then. I don't know. I don't know if this is like an American book or what. Computer be running 25 games at once. It's a shit computer. I'm gonna get a new one after I move. Yeah, Frank is living it up though. Oh yeah, he be watching South Park. Hell yeah, way to go. We're watching Futurama too. That's a good show. All right. He actually didn't see much of his uncle, who worked long hours at the local power plant, and who spent the bulk of his free time either watching movies or reading. But Luke soon noticed that 2 or 3 times a week, his uncle would spend a long time upstairs in the house's attic. Luke assumed that he went up there to work on the kind of hobby that an older man might be too embarrassed to admit he still pursued, such as model building or baseball card collecting, so he didn't think it was too strange when his uncle changed the subject the only time Luke brought it up. He did wonder, though, what went on up there. But curious as he was, he decided to try to respect his uncle's privacy. Do you get it yet? Because you should get it the second you read that. Twitter's canceling South Park right now. I said, listen, South Park isn't gonna get canceled because South Park is the center of controversy for 20 years? Dude, there's no fucking way. Story only mentioned the dog so they can kill him later. I think Casey's a girl dog because it's spelled Kaycee, not like Casey, like the dude from Ninja Turtles. Skipping out on your zooms for this stream. That's probably not a great idea. Anyway. Yeah, that is a weird way to spell it. Anyway. There is, however, a huge difference between trying to do something and actually doing it. The problem for Luke was that imagining what his uncle did up there was a very good way to stop thinking about Sammy and all the house's other posters, so he did it as much as he could, and the more he did it, the more he wanted to learn the truth. Every time they say the word Sammy, it's in italics. So, that's a thing. Is that the Starfield to loop? Is that... I don't know if it's, finished yet. Okay. The problem was that his uncle kept the attic door shut tight with the same kind of combination lock that Luke used for his locker at school. While there was no way for him to open the lock, he realized that the latch and bolt it went through could easily be removed with a screwdriver, or, if the screws had been put in extra tight, an electric drill. Armed with the necessary... Oh, okay, homie's just going for it. Armed with the necessary tools, Luke waited patiently for his uncle's car to pull out of the driveway and disappear down the road before he ran to the attic door and got to work. It turned out that a screwdriver couldn't get it done, so he picked up the cordless drill he found in his uncle's garage and searched through a small blue case full of drill bits for the one that he needed. Bit of extraneous detail, but honestly... Every time I've ever picked up a cordless drill, it's always out of batteries. Every fucking time. If they cancel South Park, it's gonna be riots in the street. Is it? I mean, people don't really talk about South Park all that much anymore. It's not as big of a cultural force. I mean, like, it used to be that, like, everybody was, like, talking about, like, oh, shit, did you see what they did on South Park? But now it's just, like, another show. There's tons of shows. Hello. Japanese name. I can't read that. Yeah, okay. Well, I know it's in hiragana, but, you know, whatever. I'm not going to try to translate that right now. Anyway. Okay, we got the tools, and a few minutes later, the lock was off the door. Feeling a rush of excitement from his accomplishment, Luke turned the knob to open the door, and was immediately disheartened when he discovered that it, too, was locked and required a key to be opened. Assuming that the key was on the road to the power plant with his uncle, Luke almost gave up right there, but then he looked at the drill still in his hand, and the door's exposed hinges. It occurred to him that it wouldn't be that hard to take the door off completely. He just hoped he could put it back on without doing anything to it that would arouse his uncle's suspicions. Luke, this is a lot to go through just to get your uncle's porn mags. You don't... I know it's 2004, but the internet exists. They had the Playboy channel. Or Cinemax? I don't know what the fucking... They have one of those. I don't know. It's fine. The mystery of the uncle's Playboy mags. Want to start trying ASMR? Any advice? I don't know. I don't do ASMR. It's fake. I just do audio role plays. But, like, you know, just get a mic, get some scripts, start reading, see what happens. Or just improv. Like, literally just, like, do whatever you want. As I've proven time and time again, they can't fucking stop you. I did Sans ASMR, and nobody stopped me. YouTube didn't roll up to my apartment like, hey, you can't post this shit. No, you can like, as long as it's legal, you literally can post anything you want and they will not stop you. Anyway. Sonic.exe ASMR exists now. It does exist now. And nobody showed up. Like, YouTube, they monetized it super fast. They were just like, yes, this is fine. It's completely fine to put ads on this. And yeah, just nobody can stop you. Nobody can stop you. They should have stopped me, you're right, but they won't. They won't. They approved me for monetization, like, in a day. And it's supposed to take, like, a month. They just did that shit. Because I can't be stopped, and nobody can stop you either. Anyway, let's continue. The hinges proved to be a lot trickier to remove than the bolt and the latch had been, but after a good hour of sweaty labor... An hour? You're telling me that this 14-year-old boy has that much of an attention span to go at this for an hour? Bullshit. I can go downstairs and watch South Park again. I hate this kid. Has Sonic.exe aged? No. No, absolutely not. Are you kidding me? Anyway. Yeah, exactly. The tool... With 3 more screws to go, he was alarmed by the sound of the drill's motor. Instead of whirring powerfully, it started to whimper. Yeah, I'm surprised that the drill even had a full battery to begin with. Yeah, it no longer had the power to get the job done. More afraid that he wouldn't be able to get the door back on before his uncle got home than of not finding out what was in the attic, Luke began to panic. But before he could get too worked up, he looked down at the drill and saw a small sticker attached to it. It read, in case of low battery, either stop and recharge or continue with included AC adapter. I mean, alright. I was gonna do that anyway. Okay, I'm gonna double check this. I think the starfield looped, but I have no way to confirm that. Oh well. Oh my god, Gameling, gross. Anyway, he could keep going if he found the drill's detachable cord. It took him 2 hours of steady searching through the house, but eventually he found what he was looking for. His relief was quickly extinguished when he got back to the door and he found that there was no outlet along the stairway. Okay, in the 2 hours you spent looking for the fucking AC adapter, you could have recharged the drill. What are you doing, Luke? Like, really? What are you doing? He ran downstairs and discovered that the nearest available outlet was in the living room, which for his purposes might as well have been 100 miles away. It was getting close to noon, and virtually every appliance in the house except for the fridge was turned off as Luke looted the house for every extension cord and power bar he could find. In the end, he needed too long. This motherfucker just spent an entire page explaining how this kid is using a drill to open up a door. This is a page-long explanation of how this kid struggled to get this fucking door open. What is happening? His uncle's not home. His uncle's not home right now. He has to get it done before he gets home. Okay. In the end, he needed 2 long cords and 3 bars in order to get close enough to the door to finish the job. Finally, after over 4 hours of work, he removed the door and walked into the dark attic. A fucking page of that. Unlike the protagonists of the kinds of movies whose posters Uncle Frank collected, the first thing Luke did when he stepped inside was search for a light switch. There wasn't one by the door, so he was forced to creep along the wall until his hand found one 10 feet to the right. He flipped it on and was rewarded with the sight of a small, dank space filled with a wide variety of old and badly damaged plastic toys, a small television, and a large box-like object that was hidden underneath a ratty and tattered red blanket. Slowly, he walked towards this last item to see what exactly the blanket hid, but he stopped when he heard the phone ring downstairs. It was ridiculous. Why doesn't the uncle have extension cords? I don't know, man. He's gonna tell him he's coming home early. It's gotta be. Uncle Frank always called him sometime around lunch, so Luke turned around and flew down the stairs to answer the phone before the machine picked it up, as he didn't want his uncle to think that anything was out of the ordinary. "Hello?" he answered just in time, trying his best not to sound like he was out of breath. "Hey, kiddo," his uncle greeted him. "How are things going on the home front?" "The usual," Luke lied. "Same old, same old." "That's good. It looks like I'm actually going to get home on time today, so I thought I'd pick up some food on the way. How does some chicken sound?" Luke made some clucking noise. Okay, Luke made some clucking noises, which made his uncle laugh. "Maybe we'll get lucky and we'll get a bucket with with a battered and fried rat in it, just like that story I told you a couple years ago," his uncle reminded him. "Do you remember that?" What the fuck is going on with this story? "Yeah," answered Luke, neglecting to mention that he had refused to eat takeout chicken for 4 months after he'd heard it. "Anyway, I'll see you at dinner time. Try not to do anything too exciting until then, okay?" "I won't." They said goodbye to each other and hung up. As soon as he put the phone down, Luke realized he had just a few more minutes to explore the attic, if he wanted to have enough time to make sure he covered all his tracks before his uncle got home. He ran up the stairs and into the dark room and tore the blanket off the hidden object, revealing a large rectangular cage and the heavy odor of wild animal. He looked into the cage and found that it was empty, save for a blue blanket. He quickly began to panic when he realized that the animal that his uncle kept in the cage must have gotten out while he was on the phone. What? He didn't say that the door was open or anything. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, if he's behind a locked door, like a double locked door, Why is he in a cage? Wow, Luke is 30 now. Jesus fucking Christ, time is a cancer. Yeah, how did this creature escape the cage? Not knowing what kind of animal it had been, he wasn't sure how wise it would be for him to go and search for it. The fact that his uncle was so secretive about its existence had to be proof that something wasn't normal about this particular pet, but he searched for it anyway. Unfortunately, it was nowhere in sight, and as the minutes quickly evaporated, he was forced to give up the search and put the door back on his hinges. It turned out to be quite a bit harder to put the door back on than it had been to take down. Bullshit. I don't believe that. When he finally got it back up and finished putting the latch and bolt back on, he had just a half an hour to put away all the extension cords and power bars he had pilfered throughout the house. This also meant he had to reset all the clocks and appliances he had unplugged. He briefly toyed with the idea of claiming they had gone off during a local power failure, but he realized that, given where his uncle worked, this idea probably wouldn't play. There was just 5 minutes left to spare on the last clock he set, but he felt no relief. He had left several small, but noticeable scratches on the attic door during the course of the day, and, along with the missing animal, it was only a matter of time before his intrusion into his uncle's privacy was discovered. I don't believe that a 14-year-old boy had the attention span to take that door off. It's his uncle's BDSM cage. You know what? That would be the most realistic answer. Ah, my ears are popping. Take the Lord's name in vain whenever I want. Don't tell me what to do. I don't believe in God. That's right, I said it. I don't have any gum. Anyway, where was I? Okay, yeah. His worries were further compounded by the odd sounds he heard creak and rattle around him. Though he wanted to dismiss them as the kind of noises that could be heard in any quiet house, he feared that they were being made by something that definitely shouldn't be out and about. You're in the middle class? Why is everybody in the middle class? Oh well. Feeling guilty, tired, and afraid, he flopped down nervously on the living room couch and turned on the TV, and sat there until his uncle came home with a bucket of fried chicken 10 minutes later. The strange sounds continued to clatter throughout the house as the two of them sat down to eat, but luckily his uncle didn't seem to notice them. Luke's nerves had shrunk his appetite down to nothing, and it was all he could do to choke down a drumstick. After a few moments of uncomfortable silence at the table, he excused himself and went to his room, where the first thing he saw was that horrible poster. Listen, I know everybody's just like, oh, I'm so nervous I can't even eat, but honestly can't relate. I'm always hungry. He lay down on his bed and closed his eyes and hoped that somehow everything would turn out all right. His hopes were shattered when about an hour later he heard his uncle shout with a voice full of disheartening anger. "Luke," he roared, "what have you done?" Before Luke could get up from his bed, his door burst open and his uncle ran to grab him and grabbed him roughly by the shoulders. "Tell me you didn't go into the attic," he pleaded, and it was at that moment that Luke realized it wasn't anger that he heard in his uncle's voice, but the very worst kind of fear. "Tell me." That reminds me of like that Yu-Gi-Oh thing, you know. I think it's from the dub or the abridged series. "Tell me." "Oh, you'll find out. I'm about to summon it." The Rapture. Wasn't that supposed to happen in 2014? I watched the Internet Historian video about that. That was really funny. Anyway, I just wanted to know what you did up there, Luke admitted tearfully, frightened by his uncle's obvious terror. I didn't mean to let whatever was in there out, but it got loose when I was talking to you on the phone. Did you see where he went? I didn't see it at all. You called before I could remove the blanket and it was gone when I got back. So he could be anywhere. I guess, said Luke before he asked the big question. What is it, Uncle Frank? Why are you so scared of it? Uncle Frank looked at Luke for a second before he buried his face into his hands. You can just call him Frank. You don't have to call him Uncle Frank every fucking time. Oh man, yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge is really good. There hasn't been a new episode in like a really long time though, right? That sucks. Alright, well, nobody's making you stick around to respect me. Like, I'm sorry, like... Shit's wild. Who was phone? Okay. I'll get to it. I'm holding on a bit of a cliffhanger. Okay. Uncle Frank looked at Luke for a second before he buried his face into his hands. He stayed like that for a long time before he lifted his head and started to speak. Luke, he said, how much do you know about your Auntie Maureen? Luke answered by saying that all he knew about her was that she had been Uncle Frank's wife, who, along with their only son, had died during childbirth a couple of years before Luke was born. His uncle nodded his head slowly at this and sighed heavily before he told Luke a secret no one else in his family had ever been told before. Your aunt did die giving birth. That's a fact. But it wasn't from unstoppable hemorrhaging like her doctor and I told everyone. No, she was murdered. Murdered right in front of us by the child she had carried. That's a horrible thing for a father to say about his son, but I was there, and I saw it. Just seconds after he took in his first breath, he killed his own mother. But how? Luke didn't understand. He was a monster, or as close as a human being could ever get to being one, both physically and spiritually. It was all we could do not to kill him right then and there. By every law we had the right, but we didn't. He was my son after all. We told everyone that he died with his mother, and I took him home and raised him as best I could. This used to be his room, but then he got too big to manage, and I had no choice but to keep him in the cage. He paused for a second as he thought about this. You can't imagine how agonizing it feels to know you were... What? You can't imagine how agonizing it feels to know that were it not for a collection of metal bars, your own son would happily tear into your neck. This is fucking ridiculous. Here goes your Sammy fanfic idea. Yeah, bro. Okay. But how could anyone be that horrible? Asked Luke. I don't know, his uncle admitted. All I know is that despite the evil malevolence that was always there in his eyes, I still loved him. I even put a picture of him up on the wall of his old room. I hoped that it would make him seem even the slightest bit normal. What? Okay, this is a dumbass explanation. I'm gonna reread this. I even put a picture of him up on the wall of his old room. I hoped it would make him seem even the slightest bit normal, but I had to disguise it as a poster for a horror movie. And then, to explain why I would frame such a horrible thing, I had to collect real posters to surround it. Shut the fuck up! Okay, listen. I already knew the twist here, but I forgot this. Okay, so he basically just started a horror movie collection, in reverse. He was just okay, I want to put up this picture of my son in his old bedroom for some fucking reason. And then he's okay, but it looks horrible. I'll have to disguise it as a horror movie poster. And then to disguise the fact that, like, nobody would ever want something that horrible on their wall, I'll just have to pretend that I collect horror movie posters. Like, you could just say that it's a cult classic film that you're a really big fan of and just leave it at that. Really, bro. Or just not put up a poster of his fucking face at all. Anyway. Luke turned pale when he heard this. He did not have to be told which poster his uncle was talking about. Sammy. And Sammy is italicized even when he says it out loud. His voice shook as he whispered its name aloud. His uncle nodded. What's he going to do? Asked Luke. His uncle shrugged. What would you do if someone had kept you inside a cage for almost a decade? He's going to do what he wanted to do ever since he was born. He's going to kill me. We've got to call the police. They can find him and stop him, Luke insisted. No, his uncle shook his head. They'll kill him. They'll have to. It's the only way they'll be able to stop him. But he's my son, Luke. Was that an intentional Star Wars reference? Is Luke supposed to be a Star Wars reference? This is fucking stupid. Yeah, so I guess Sammy was actually his cousin. He's my son, Luke. I can't let him die like that. No. All I can do is wait for him. He pulled out his wallet and handed it over to Luke. I want you to walk over to the payphone at the convenience store down the block and call a cab to take you home. There should be enough to pay for the ride and anything you need before your parents get back. But go, his uncle shouted. Now. Terrified, Luke jumped up and ran out of the house and all the way to the store. When he got there, he dialed 911 and begged the emergency operator to send over the police right away. 10 minutes later, a squad car met him in the store's parking lot. What? What do you mean the parking lot? Why didn't you tell them the address of the house? How do you... What the fuck? Oh wow, thank you Matthews Voth for the Canadian $5. When writing, you italicize titles, so books, movies, TV shows, that's actually proper despite how dumb this fic is. Aw, damn, I just got fucking schooled. I just got schooled for the price of $5. Way to go, dude. Consider me learned. Yeah, this isn't a fanfic. This is a published book that they sold in stores. No, this is a published book. It's Campfire Ghost Stories Volume 2. It's written by A.S. Mott. It's a real thing. Anyway. It's my uncle, Luke explained. His son is going to kill him. You have to hurry. The two officers raced to the house, and Luke ran as fast as he could. Behind their car? What? I think the officers could give him a ride. He watched as the two men entered the house with their guns drawn, and his heart pounded as he waited outside. From inside the house, a thundering wave of gunshots destroyed the neighborhood's silence. Luke watched as a small, pale, bent-over figure ran out the door with a speed that didn't seem human. The two officers followed after it, but it was out of sight by the time they reached the sidewalk. One of the officers ran to the squad car and started shouting instructions into the radio. I mean, calling the cops, it was more likely that the uncle was going to get shot than Sammy, but whatever. How did he murder his mom as a 10-second-old baby? I don't know, he had sharp teeth. Fuck it. Well, actually, babies don't have teeth. Fuck it, he was a monster from birth. Demon something, I don't, whatever. I reject my humanity, Luke. Oh yeah, what the fuck happened to Casey? We've completely forgotten that his uncle had a dog this entire time. Did Sammy kill the dog? Okay, anyway, we need an ambulance, and all available officers must be on the lookout for he struggled to find the right words to describe what he had just seen. A large white animal that appears to be some kind of primate. It kind of looks like a man. Luke ran up to the other officer, looked frightened, and was out of breath. "Is my uncle okay?" The officer looked down at Luke and started to shake his head with disbelief. Okay, this is not how, like, anyone would, like, a cop would talk to a 14-year-old, but whatever. "We went in there and saw him backed into a corner by that thing. It was going to kill him, but when we aimed at it, he threw it out of the way and took the bullets himself." Called it. Guess who called it? I called it. They shot the uncle. The officer's eyes were glazed with disbelief. Why would he do that? Luke began to shake as he was overcome with tears. Through his sobs, he tried to answer the officer's question, but he wasn't sure if he understood the truth himself. And that's the end of the fucking story. Sorry, Frank. Yes. How stupid is Frank? Pretty stupid. He's like, "I know my son is gonna kill me, but I also, like, don't want him to die." The man's a fool. How long have I been on for? It's been like an hour and a half. We can do one more. That ending fucking sucks. You're right. It's terrible. Man, this is fucking longer than I thought it was. Yeah. No, you know, this one is like wholesome no sleep, you know? Like, it's like, I don't know what you could call it. It's like, I don't know what, like, it's like, it like involves death, but it's also like kind of like wholesome, I guess. Yeah, and no, like, we never found out what happened to Casey, the dog. It's ridiculous. The dog didn't die, but it doesn't exist anymore. I could write a better story than that. I write reader insert fan fiction, and all of it is better than that story. I publish a book called Fake Ghost Stories. I mean, clearly this proves that, like, Ghost House Books, if that's still a company that exists, will friggin', like, publish anything. Anyway, this one has shipping potential, and I'm just gonna say that straight out. I know it doesn't seem like it, but this is a story with shipping potential, and that's really funny to me. Okay, it's called Death's Best Friend. It all started when Jimmy accidentally electrocuted himself. It was early in the morning, and he'd yet to feel the effects of his first cup of coffee. His eyes still blurry from sleep, he slid a couple of pieces of toast into the toaster and waited for them to pop up, all warm and toasty brown. Silly. He turned the radio on and just happened to catch his favorite epic rock song that was beginning. The music woke him up, and he started to play air guitar as he sang. He got so involved in the music that he forgot about the toast, which had been stuck inside the toaster and started to burn. It was only when the smoke detector began to beep that he realized something was wrong. He turned around and saw that the smoke was coming from the slots of his toaster, so he instinctively grabbed a fork from the sink and stuck it into the slot to dig out the toast? Okay, Jimmy's fucking stupid. Like, unplug the toaster? You fucking moron? What the hell? Why is every protagonist so stupid? Yeah, they can't actually say what rock song it was. They don't have the copyright for that. The electricity that surged through his body was enough to stop his heart. He landed on the ground with a thud and lay there until a bony hand bade him to get up. Stunned, he sat up and saw a very tall and very skinny figure in front of him. The creature was dressed in a long black cloak, had no skin on its body, and was holding a sharp farming implement. Homie, you can say scythe. Like, is this like the Black Butler version of Grim Reapers where they all have a different gardening tool? Like, Bro. What? Just say scythe. Dude, Jimmy greeted him. You're the Grim Reaper. I mean, to be fair, I might have the same reaction, just like be like, dude. That's right, answered the Grim Reaper, his voice a hollow, gravelly sound that seemed to echo from his chest. Cool. Does that mean I'm dead? Jimmy's just fucking cool. Jimmy's just fucking cool with this shit. Maybe he was suicidal the whole time. He was just waiting for the opportunity. Yes, the ominous creature intoned solemnly. Well, that bites, Jimmy complained. But I guess it couldn't be helped, huh? I'm only 25, but when it's your time to go, it's time to go. What the fuck? Dude, it's only 2004. This kind of brand of millennial didn't exist until like 2013 at least. Come on. I don't think any 25-year-old in 2004 was like this, like ready to go. Sorry, Jimmy. A 25-year-old man shoved a fork in a toast. Yeah, he did that. That's correct. Cool. So where are we going? I'm taking you to the land of judgment where your soul shall be. The Reaper was interrupted by an annoying beeping noise. What's that? Asked Jimmy. The Reaper sighed. It's my cell phone, he admitted. Give me a second. I love modern interpretations of Grim Reapers where they all just have fucking cell phones. It's ridiculous. You'd think they'd be able to communicate through like it's some kind of telepathy or something. I don't know. From his dark cloak, the Reaper pulled out a small cell phone and then spoke into it. Oh, please tell me it's a Nokia. Reaper here, he answered. A few seconds passed as the person on the other line asked him a question. Yes, said the Reaper. I've got him right here. I was just about to take him to the judgment place. Really? Are you sure? Did Benny screw up the paperwork again? Can't we replace him? I know, it just makes me look bad. I can make a roleplay out of this. I could. It's a classic scenario of the Grim Reaper getting, like, the wrong person, and then it's just like, oh, I met the Grim Reaper, but you get to go back to life? Yeah. I could do this. Grim Reaper's phone is the bone phone. Sorry, Reaper. You can use the sounds of you drinking as your vampire character drinking our blood. Yeah, but the sound doesn't really come through well on the mic. Oh my god. Okay, listen to me. I don't want to throw shade on any other dudes, but like, somebody was doing like a vampire roleplay, and this dude. So like, the specifics of it was that he was biting into the listener's arm for like medical reasons or something. Don't question it. But when he bit into, like, when he did the biting sound effect, it was really obvious that he just bit into an apple because there was such a loud fucking crunch. Like, you could hear the sound of like teeth entering an apple and then just sucking, and like, it sounded so bad. It sounded awful. I was just like, dude, did he just bite through my fucking arm bone? Oh man. Anyway, let's get back to this. Yeah, I know it's not your fault. Don't worry, I'll take care of this. Tell Susie I said hi. He hung up, even though he had no skin. Jimmy could tell that the summoner of souls before him was blushing with embarrassment. That's shipping potential. The fact that he can blush, that's shipping potential. It looks like a mistake has been made, the Reaper explained sheepishly. You're not due to face your judgment just yet. Really? Does that mean I'm not dead? That's correct, the Reaper nodded. Cool, Jimmy grinned. How many times... Listen. Jimmy has started 3 sentences with the word cool. This guy's just a dude, bro. Cool, Jimmy grinned. I didn't want to be a bring down. A bring down? A bring down? That's not a turn of phrase. I didn't want to be a bring down. Fuck off. But I was kind of bummed about my, shuffling off this mortal coil. I figured I'd get another 10 or 20 years at least. Somehow, without lips, the Reaper smiled. Papyrus rules. Try 50, he suggested. 50? Jimmy repeated excitedly. Realizing what he had just said, all the color that shouldn't have been in the Reaper's face in the first place immediately drained out of it. Yeah, really, this is just, the magical properties of, either, just Papyrus can do this. Because he's a cartoon. The Reaper is Papyrus. For your crimes in life you shall suffer in death. Peace will forever elude you. Only agony you shall know forever. Sick, bro. Jim's a fucking hippie. Yeah, Jimmy dies at 75. Let's see what happens. I shouldn't have told you that, he said to Jimmy. No one is supposed to know how long they have. It's against the rules. My boss would kill me if he found out. Don't worry about it, Jimmy said reassuringly. I won't tell. You promised? Asked the Reaper. Sure, Jimmy smiled. It can be our little secret. Thanks, the Reaper said, breathing out with relief. My butt was on the line there. So I really have 50 years before I'm supposed to die? Asked Jimmy. The Reaper nodded. Do you want the date? He asked. You just said you're not supposed to tell him this. Why are you, specifying? Jimmy thought about it for a second and shook his head. Surprise me, he told the Reaper. Will do, the Reaper smiled. See you in 50, then. Yeah, see ya. The Reaper vanished, and Jimmy awoke with a start. The smoke detector was still beeping, and the toaster was now on fire. Why didn't he fucking unplug it? Feeling more energetic than he ever had before, he jumped up and put the fire out by throwing a wet dish towel on it. Then he turned off the smoke detector and threw away the blackened toast. And unplugged the toaster 'cause it's clearly broken? Get a new toaster, Jimmy. What are you fucking doing? Watch, I'll make that number shorter. Having just faced death, he felt incredibly alive. There were things he had to do. Isn't this like the Jigsaw, philosophy? You face death, you come out, and you're just fuck yeah, life. The first item on his list was to fulfill a dream he had had for several years, ever since he had become a regular at the pub down the street. It was his favorite place in the world, and he would have considered it perfect were it not for the unwelcome presence of a lout named Chad Mayhew, standing 6'6", weighing over 300 pounds. Chad. I just realized his name is Chad. Man, pre-meme, this kind of feels deep faked in. Chad was the type of guy who liked to throw his considerable weight around to bully people to get what he wanted. He often harassed other customers, started fights, and even stole people's drinks in front of their faces, daring them with a look to do something about it. Nah. Excuse me. Got too much air in my lungs. Yep, y'all heard the train. Oops. Y'all gonna be hearing a lot more Train Coon after I move. Well, maybe not. I don't know if they, blow the horn over there. I don't know if they would. They only do that at, cross sections, right? Crosswalks, whatever. Anyway. Jimmy had long wanted to stand up to Chad, but his natural survival instinct had always stopped him. But now he knew that he was guaranteed 50 more years of life. He decided it was time to take a shot. That night he walked into the pub and headed directly over to Chad, who, along with some friends, had just forced a group of people out of the booth they had been sitting in. Hey! He shouted at Chad. The pub became instantly silent. Are you talking to me? Asked Chad incredulously. Yeah, answered Jimmy. Chad stood up. He was a full foot taller than Jimmy. The rest of the patrons stared in horror as they anticipated the violence that was sure to follow. "Hey, what?" asked Chad menacingly. Jimmy hadn't thought of an answer for that particular question, so he took a second to figure out how to properly phrase his thoughts. "Hey, you're easily the stupidest example of a dim-witted Neanderthal moron I've ever had the misfortune to meet. You're ugly, too. Big, stupid, and ugly. That about sums it up." You fucking kidding me? That was his definition of standing up to him? It just insulted the dude. It's pointless. Like, I thought he would, like, get in a fight and be like, "Don't set foot in this fucking pub ever again," but no. Everyone in the pub gasped. The more sensitive patrons shielded their eyes to avoid witnessing the inevitable violence that was sure to follow such an insult. Chad couldn't believe what he'd been told. No one had ever insulted him like that in all his life. "Did you just call me stupid and ugly?" he asked Jimmy, bewildered. "You smell bad, too," Jimmy answered him. It would be really funny if instead of, like, attacking him, Chad would just be like, "Dude, that's really rude. That hurts my feelings. What the fuck?" Luckily, Jimmy didn't feel much of the pummeling he received from Chad, as he was knocked unconscious by the first punch. However, the enraged brute still pounded him until he was unrecognizable. Bloodied and battered, Jimmy opened his eyes and saw that everyone around him had frozen in time. Jimmy, like, why the fuck? Like, why would you do this? Like, you were just like, "Oh man, I'm alive. I get to live for another 50 years. I'm gonna go and get myself beat up immediately?" Like, what? Yeah, those were, like, really shitty insults, too. Jimmy's a dumbass. Okay. An annoyed Reaper stood over him. "What do you think you're doing?" asked the grim one. "Hey, man," Jimmy grinned. "Nice to see you again so soon. I asked you a question. I just want to let this jerk know what everyone thought about him. And you were willing to nearly get beaten to death? And for that you were willing to nearly get beaten to death?" It's fucking... Jesus Christ. Hold on a second. Is everything still looking good? Okay, great. Everything is fine. Chad really assaulted a man for 5th grade insults. Maybe he'll go to jail, I don't know. Well, it sure sounds crazy when you put it like that, Jimmy admitted, but it seemed like a pretty good idea at the time. Does this have anything to do with your knowing how long you have to live? A little, I guess, the Reaper sighed. Jimmy, just because you know how long you've got a long time left doesn't mean you should put yourself in dangerous situations. You could get crippled or put into a permanent coma. As it is, you're going to need extensive plastic surgery just to rebuild your face. It was worth it, Jimmy smiled. Was it? I assume you live in the US, which means it's super not worth it. Okay, well, Train Coon's fucking going off. I gotta get more water. I'll be back in a second. Jimmy goes into near-death experiences just to see his bae. That's what I'm talking about, shipping potential. Anyway, let's continue. Let's get this story done. The Reaper groaned. He could tell by the look on Jimmy's broken face that he was going to see a lot more of this kid, thanks to a quick slip of his tongue, which he definitely doesn't have because he's a skeleton. He had turned the friendly young man into someone who no longer feared death, which meant there was no telling how much trouble he was going to get into in the future. Almost as if by a miracle, Jimmy awoke inside of the ambulance just as the paramedics were about to pronounce him DOA. His face had suffered such a mauling the emergency room nurse almost fainted when she saw him. The doctors were astounded he was still alive. He stayed in the hospital for several months as he underwent reconstructive facial surgery. Even the surgeons who performed the operations were shocked how well they turned out. Somehow, Jimmy managed to look even better than he had before. That's not how reconstructive surgery works. It's not. But I mean, Jimmy's gonna be like millions of dollars in debt right now. As for Chad, he was sentenced to 6 years in prison for assault. The day before he was scheduled for his release, he met the Reaper himself when he was shanked by another con for failing to return a borrowed copy of Martha Stewart Living. What? His friends were banned from the pub, and it became the ideal hangout Jimmy had always believed it should have been. Okay, Okay. So, several months of reconstructive facial surgery just to have the perfect hangout spot. Jimmy is fucking insane. Like, clinically. Like, wow. Hold on, the chat froze again. Stupid thing. This is so dumb. Why does this keep happening? This never happens on Twitch. Ever. Jimmy is a psychopath confirmed. Yeah. Just as the Reaper feared, Jimmy wasted no time risking his life numerous ways after he got out of the hospital. He rescued people from burning buildings, he went skydiving and took up rock climbing, he organized a union at the company he worked for. Oh. Okay. Yeah. There's no caveat to that. He organized a union at the company he worked for. Like, shit, dude. A.S. Mott says, fuck capitalism. Like, first the contract story, and now this. Like, he's like, yeah, organizing a union at the company he risked his life doing that. Dude. Amazing. Jimmy's being a good guy taking all these risks, right? Well, I mean, except when he insulted that dude. But I guess he said it was worth it. He played rugby. Again, no caveat to that. He played rugby. He walked down dark alleys in bad neighborhoods late at night. Okay, that seems like a bit extravagant. He drove one of those SUVs whose tires were always exploding, causing the vehicles to flip over. What? I've never heard of that, but also, what a waste of your talent, bro. So did it flip over? Did he get in a car accident? He ate shellfish and nuts despite lifelong allergies to both. He even once stopped a bank robbery in progress and took a bullet in the chest for his effort. Okay, at this point it just kind of seems like Jimmy is dying on purpose just so he can see death. Like, dude's got a crush. Thank you, Sleepy Nocturne, for the US $4.99. He's a psycho working for Shady Inc. It's why he can afford the medical bills. I'm sorry, I don't get that reference. But thank you. Thank you for the $4.99. Yeah, I know, the Reaper literally told him, like, dude, you could get, like, crippled for life or end up in a coma forever, and Jimmy just doesn't give a fuck. He wants to see death again. This is what I said by shipping potential. He eventually became recognized by the World Records people. The World Records people, okay, I know, are you not allowed to say Guinness Book of World Records? Whatever. I don't think this is like a tangible category. As the man with the most near-death experiences, and every time he had one, he would get a lecture from an aggravated Reaper. One of these days, I'm just gonna stop coming, the personification of death threatened him. It wouldn't be so funny then, would it? And what happens if next time you end up with a body so mangled the doctors can't fix it? Just because you've been this lucky this far doesn't mean your luck can't end. Jimmy had heard this lecture before. Admit it, you'd miss me, he grinned at the Reaper. Ha, laughed the Reaper derisively. Derisively? Whatever. Yeah, you'd miss me. Okay, listen to this. Jimmy was right, though the Reaper would never admit it. As the years passed, his lectures about the foolishness of Jimmy's actions became less about his being annoyed than about his genuine concern. Because of the very nature of his work, the Reaper got to meet literally every person who ever lived, but almost always only once, or in rare cases, twice. And about 90% of the time, people weren't too keen on talking to him, as they were usually grumpy about having just died, or nervous about what would happen to them in the judgment place. Jimmy was one of the only people he had gotten to know the entire time he'd had the job, and he liked the guy. Shipping potential. Listen, this isn't a well-written story, but I do ship Jimmy and the Reaper. Tsundere Grim Reaper. Hell yeah, bro. I should do that. But I just did a Grim Reaper, so I can't do it right now. I fucking ship it, though. Sure, he wasn't the brightest bulb in the pack, but he always meant well. He admired how Jimmy used his knowledge about the time he had left in the physical world to help people and not for his own benefit. I mean, I feel like eating nuts and shellfish, even though he was allergic, were kind of for his own benefit. Like, you know, and playing rugby. Whatever. This is the plot of an early 2000s anime. God, I wish. I would watch that anime. It had occurred to the Reaper the last time they had gotten together, when Jimmy had a heart attack while running a marathon for charity, that Jimmy was his best and only friend. This made him feel sad, because he knew that eventually, on a day Jimmy would never expect, he would not be able to return his friend to the living realm. But the Reaper didn't have a lot of time to dwell on this fact, as he was getting busier and busier as the years passed by. Even though people around the world were living longer and longer, there were still more dead people than ever had been before. He would be working himself to the bone, if he hadn't already started out that way. Oh, fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you for writing that. Oh, you know, it's like that Game Grumps remix, you know, how's it go? Dying for the 20th time. The few minutes he spent with Jimmy every year or so amounted to the only vacation time he got. Despite his immortality, the effort was beginning to wear him out. He kept complaining to his bosses, but the red tape always kept him from finding a solution. Who is the Reaper's boss? Like, goddamn, bro. Like, he seems to be the only one doing this shit. Who's he working for? And why aren't there more of him? I always like the headcanon there's, like, multiple Grim Reapers, like in Black Butler, but, like, you know, just having one, it's a lot. God. Oh my god. Even God has to deal with red tape? So he's actually going to bring Jimmy around with him. Oh, you'll see. I know how the story ends, but, like, vaguely. I haven't read it in, like, years. Plus, none of the agencies would work together. The agencies? So even if his bosses got the weather people to ease up on the earthquakes, typhoons, hurricanes, and other disaster, the nature people would just introduce another disease and keep him just as busy. Homie, there is no God in this setup. What the fuck is this? Man, this is how... Like, I feel like I relate to this book because this is how I used to write stories when I was younger, you know? Just, like, set up vague allusions to things, just, like, put in a lot of extraneous details, but never really explain how the world works. That was me, back in the day. Jimmy didn't work nearly as hard as his buddy. Thanks to a handful of extremely lucrative insurance claims, he never had to work again, and spent his remaining years relaxing and doing what he could to help others. Despite all his near-death experiences, he remained healthy and looked at least a decade younger than his actual age. Knowing it was time to quit the daredevil stuff, he decided to make a difference by working as a volunteer at a hospice for terminally ill people. There he did his best to teach the dying that his friend the Reaper was a really cool guy, and that they shouldn't be afraid of him. Okay, listen, I know that's, like, technically a good thing to do, but if you're going around telling terminally ill people that, like, the Grim Reaper is a really cool dude, they're gonna kick you out of the hospital. Yeah, and he did tell people. Like, it's the one thing he told you not to do. Jimmy fucking sucks. The Reaper learned about his friend's efforts when he noticed that many of the people he picked up from the hospice mentioned they had heard good things about him from an older man who always had a smile on his face. No, he was legitimately going around telling them about the fucking Reaper. Jimmy, he told you not to do that. Jimmy is chaotic good. No, Jimmy's an idiot. Oh my god. Okay. That Jimmy would do this for him moved him more than he could ever say. It also gave him an idea. He's gonna ask Jimmy out when he dies. They are bonded for life. It never says that Jimmy gets married. It never mentions Jimmy getting married, ever. I think Jimmy's gonna marry the Reaper. The final decade of Jimmy's life passed as if it had just been a jubilant long weekend. Though he and the Reaper did not meet during that time, they had thought about each other constantly. And when Jimmy turned 75, he looked forward to seeing his friend for the last time. Put air quotes around that friend. They were thinking about each other constantly during the decade they didn't see each other. Shut the fuck... Yeah, this is supposed to be a campfire story. Let me read the back of this. Yeah, like, really, It's a campfire ghost story. This isn't even a ghost story, but Campfire sleepovers, home alone, whenever you're in the mood. This is the fright-filled collection for you. I guess, like, this is in the middle of the book. It's, like, supposed to be, like, a wholesome break from everything else. But this is not a story you would tell around a campfire. This is a story that you would read specifically for fan fiction inspiration. I could think of several, like... Okay, think about it with me like this. You're writing an AU fan fiction. One side of the ship is the Reaper. The other side is playing the role of Jimmy. And they, like, especially if, like, it's an action-centric series that you're writing a fanfic for, you could just be like, oh, this character is always getting into mishaps and, like, getting in danger and shit. They've met the Reaper a bunch of times, and when they finally die for real, they get to join the Reaper, and then they finally get married. That's shipping fodder. This could be good, actually. I could write a fanfic with this. Anyway, we gotta finish it, because, like, I actually do have to sleep at some point today. Okay, anyway. He now kind of regretted not asking for the date of his death, because not knowing made him slightly anxious. He was thinking about it one morning, when he stepped into his shower. As he started lathering up a piece of soap, it slipped out of his hands. As he bent down to pick it up, he stepped on it and slipped. When he woke up, his friend was standing above him. Hi, Jimmy smiled, slightly embarrassed to be caught naked. What the fuck? Okay. Shut up. Not only did he drop the soap, which, wow, but also he finally saw the Reaper again, which we've established he's definitely been crushing on for, like, the past 50 years. Naked. He's naked. What? This... I have a question. Is A.S. Mott gay? 'Cause I know he's a dude. It just seems unlikely to me that a guy would write this story unless he was gay. I say that sounds kind of prejudiced of me. I'll take that back. And after all that shit, he died in a shower. Oh no, it seems you caught me naked and ready. Oh dear, what a shame would it be if someone were to take me here and now. Yeah, that's gross. 75-year-old man fucks the Reaper. Wow. Just wow. Straight men enjoy gay fics. Alright. I was being unnecessarily prejudiced about this. I mean, after all, they do say that, well, they're friends. Air quotes, friends. No, I'm looking this over. Jimmy never got married. Like, it literally never says anything about him having a girlfriend or, like, a wife or anything. He never got fucking married. Ever. I'm into it, dude. This is a good one. Hi, Jimmy. The Reaper smiled back. It's really good to see you again. Thanks. I mean it. I know you do, Jimmy said as he stood up. Now, am I right in guessing this is the last time we'll ever meet? No, the Reaper grinned. Jimmy looked confused. You mean it's not my time? I'm early? He's still naked, by the way. Just so you know. The Reaper shook his head. No. Today is the day you die. But doesn't that mean I'm supposed to go to the judgment place? Aren't I supposed to never see you again after that? That is how it usually works, the Reaper nodded. Then what's going on? I have a proposal for you, Jimmy. A proposal? I know it's not going there, but come on, they're getting fucking married. They are getting married. God. There is no... I don't think there's a straight way to interpret this. What? For thousands of years, I've done my job alone, but I think it is time for that to change. I've talked to my superiors, and they've agreed with me. I don't understand. Jimmy paused. Are you asking me to be your assistant? No. I'm sorry. No, the Reaper shook his head. I'm asking you to be my partner. Bro. Dude. I am unironically into this story. History books be like they were just close friends. Dude. Okay. Jimmy stared at the tall, cloaked, skeletal figure in front of him. Fake getting flustered over a kid's horror storybook. Fuck you. I can ship anything. Early 2000s rom-com anime. Fuck. I need to write a fan fiction based on this. Just an AU fanfic. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm going to do it. Okay. Would I have to look like that? He asked with a doubtful expression. Bitch. Don't pretend like you're not into it. No, you can look however you want to look. Jimmy laughed. You mean you actually chose to look like that? The Reaper frowned. It's what I'm used to, he explained. This is the most gayest horror story. Yes, it is. Holy shit. It's only because of the ship, you're right. I'm just teasing you, Jimmy said, grinning. What would I have to do? What I do, and nothing more. Would we get to hang out together? I'm certain of it. Hang out? Fuck off. You guys are married now. Jimmy stood silent as he mulled all this over. Okay, he decided. I'll do it. From that day, anyone who died had an equal chance of being met by a tall skeleton in a black cloak holding a scythe. Oh, now they say scythe. Or a short old man with a cheerful grin and a chipper attitude. While most people would have chosen to be taken away by the less frightening of the two, those who were taken by the Reaper were often surprised that, seeing him in person, they would never describe him as being grim. And that's the end of the story. Dude. That's actually brilliant. There are so many fanfics I could write. With that AU premise... Okay, listen to me. I'm gonna get shit for talking about HLVRII again, but... Benry's the Reaper and Gordon keeps dying. Just fucking maybe. Just fucking maybe. I'm closing the book. But that's a good one. That's a good one. And I'm into it. Don't give me a WTF. You know what I'm about. You all fucking saw me read that fanfic on that drawing stream. You should know. I'm fucked up like this. Yes, that was a beautiful story. They're basically married. Like, wow. Like, wow. A proposal? They're partners? Dude. A.S. Mott, there is no fucking way you didn't know what you were doing, bro. Gordon keeps dying and G-Man is the Reaper. Yeah, I thought about it as soon as I said it, but I don't ship that, so not gonna do that. ReZero, but whenever Subaru dies, he goes to Eris, like Kazuma. What? Okay, I know that that guy dies. I don't know the story of it, though. So wouldn't Gordon be an annoyed Reaper, too, trying to avoid the science team? Yeah, I guess... Yeah. I mean, Gordon's thing is, like, he can never die because he's the main character, but, like, Benry dies all the time, and it just doesn't stick. I don't... That's just because of the story of, like, them running through Black Mesa. I don't know how I would write it in such a fashion that Benry keeps dying and Gordon's annoyed with him. I don't know, I could see it working both ways. I mean, there's no reason why I can't do both, right? Like, I could write two, like, two fanfics on, like, opposite spectrums. It's like, one, Benry's the Reaper, and he just shows up and, like, annoys the fuck out of Gordon before refusing to let him pass on to the judgment place because he doesn't have his passport. Or it could be Gordon, who's just like, dude, for some reason I can't, like, make you go forward to the judgment place. I just have to send you back to life over and over again. It works either way. Like, oh my god. I feel so inspired now. Sorry, Jimmy. Uh-oh. That sounds important. Ugh, what the fuck? I always get the worst texts at this time of day. How did it come to this? How could this happen to me? I'll tell you how it came to it. There was this time in my life where I stayed over at my friend's house for like a week. I don't know why I was there. We used to be next door neighbors, but, like, I moved away, and then she moved away, and, like, my parents just left me there for, like, a few days while they did something in Toronto, and, like, during that time it's transformative experience, because that was the friend that introduced me to fanfiction.net and told me what yaoi was, and I don't talk to that friend anymore. We lost contact, but I still believe that was, like, one of the greatest friends I've ever had, because they told me what fanfiction was, and I was enthralled. They ruined my life, but they also significantly improved my life by telling me what fanfiction was. It's crazy. There's fanfiction for literally anything on the internet. I don't fuck around with real people fiction, okay? Don't worry about that. We need ASMR of this. I don't know, like, how I would realistically turn that into ASMR. Like, it would have to be like a continuing series. Like, just like every video is like the listener dying from, like, increasingly improbable ways, and the Reaper's just like, bitch, you can't keep doing this. And then eventually it does end with, like, the listener's real death. I have to think about it. Bone smacking ASMR. I don't know, I got some pencils here. Pencils probably sound like bones. Rattle my fucking bones. Rattle my fucking bones. You're not supposed to do that, though, because it breaks the lead inside of them. These are good pencils, but the erasers are going, so might have to steal some more from work. The only good thing about my job is that I can take any office supplies I want and nobody will ever notice. Don't tell him I said that, though. You're in purgatory, but the Grim Reaper reads you fanfics. Bro. Fits with your first Reaper roleplay. Yeah, but, like, started out with the listener, like, being all flirty and shit. Like, I don't know. Would the excuse be that the Reaper keeps sending the person back to life because they don't want to deal with them? Or would it be that the Reaper just, like, bureaucracy is just, like, screwing them over and they're just like, I have to send you back to life now? I don't know. I'll think about it. Anyway, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go to bed soon. WTF, I'm in hell now. What did I do to deserve this? Satan pulls up your fanfics. My fanfics are completely moral. I think. I don't know. Whatever. Ah, great. The chat didn't update when I put it back into the friggin' thing. I get it. Does Starfield still work? Yeah, it's still working. Great. I hate this live studio thing. It really just totally tanks. I didn't go to bed. SMH couldn't be me. Yeah, I know. Fake reads lewd hand-holding fix confirmed. The only hand-holding fix are, like, slow burns, and those take forever to read. Before Jimmy died, the Reaper was bonely. Fucking Christ, that is actually a good story. Just read your own fanfic next stream. I've already done that. It's embarrassing. You guys don't want to hear my V fanfics. I'm gonna go. So thank you all for watching, and